So in the last video we saw three gunas of the nature. These are the Satvik, Rasic and Tamasic, and the Satvik is the highest. So basically what Krishna was saying is, if you want to increase the quality of your life, you need to increase the Satvik guna in your personality, right? Satvik gunas within yourself. And if you haven't seen that video, there's a link in the description. But in this video, we'll take a look in the Satvik quality in much more detail. We'll see the Satvik quality in a different aspect of our life, right? So Krishna defines it in a different aspect how the Satvik quality manifests. And he says, the first one is the Satvik Doer, the Satvik personality. How does a Satvik person acts, right? So he says the Satvik Doer is the kind of a doer who first of all, he doesn't have any kind of attachment in the ego when he's doing something, right? For example, if I'm creating this video, so that doer doesn't have any kind of attachment and ego. At the same time, he does his work with a lot of enthusiasm and determination, and he's indifferent in the success and the failure, right? What a nice way to put it, right? A kind of a person who, first of all, he has not so much attachment in the ego. For example, let's say if somebody who's in the Sattvic quality is creating this video, then he doesn't own the video, like I am the one who's creating, look how smart I am and all that kind of stuff. So he doesn't own it. At the same time, he doesn't have attachment to what is the result of this video, right? People will watch it, people won't watch it, people whatever. He doesn't care so much about these things. The kind of person who is the Sattvic, right? At the same time, when he's doing his best, he's very enthusiastic about it, he's very determined about it. And of course, if he's not so much attached, then whether it is successful and failure, it doesn't really matter to him, right? So that kind of a doer, that kind of a personality is a Sattvic personality, is a Sattvic doer, right? The second, he says the Sattvic determination, right? So he says the kind of determination, generally our determination is because we desire something, we are determined about it, right? I desire wealth, so I work very hard for the wealth, something like that. Our determination is generally like that. But he says the Sattvic person's determination is very different. He has a very strong sense of determination because he has a control over his mind, right? The determination comes from that. For this person, he doesn't really need any kind of a very strong desire or attachment to be very determined about something. And his determination is also very continuous. He is not fluctuatingly, there is a desire and that some other desire comes and then he leave that last desire and all that kind of stuff, because his mind is under his control. His determination is continuous, and that kind of a determination cultivated by meditation and yoga, right? So that is the kind of a determination a Sattvic person has. Then he says the Sattvic intelligence, and he says the Sattvic intelligence is in a way very clear. The Sattvic person is clear about what liberates me and what bonds me, what creates the bondage, right? So that is the fundamental understanding that this Sattvic person has. He is very clear about what is the bondage and what is the liberation. And then he knows what to do, what not to do, what fear and what not to fear, right? And his understanding is generally very different than other people's understanding, right? For example, normal person or normal people like us, we would like to enjoy. We would like to enjoy certain senses, and we would like to enjoy, for example, different kind of foods and varieties and all that, right? That's what we call the joy of the life, right? This is what we want to enjoy. Sattvic person doesn't see it that way. He say whether this eating a lot of let's say very going after very pleasant food, is it something that is going to bound me, or is it something that is going to liberate me? And the answer is it is going to bound you, right? Because the nature of reality is such, because if I engage in some kind of a sense pleasure, it becomes addiction, right? So what is going to happen is I eat this and now I have even more desire to eat it and even more desire to eat it. He understands this is something which is going to create a lot of restlessness inside my mind, especially if I intentionally want to enjoy these things, right? So his understanding is very different. He understands what is the bondage and what is the liberation, right? And he's very clear about that thing. So that kind of understanding, that kind of a clear understanding is Sattvic understanding, right? Then he says the Sattvic, this was the Sattvic intelligence, and then he says the fourth is the Sattvic understanding. Now the Sattvic understanding is when a person sees only one living being behind all the different beings. Is that kind of understanding is a Sattvic understanding. One living being behind all the different beings, right? Again, our understanding would be more or less like I am the one who's creating the video, another person is the one who's watching the video. So there are two different entities, right? That's how our understanding is. And the Krishna is saying Sattvic person's understanding is different. He doesn't see like there are two people, right? What he sees, uh, on the level of body, of course, there are two different bodies, but because his understanding is much more deeper, he goes more deeper to the level of the awareness, and then he says, in terms of awareness, they are the same awareness. In terms of the experiencer, there is the same experiencer. The person who is experiencing the pain in front of me is the same way I experience the pain, right? So he can see this entity is the same, right? It can be a little bit tricky to, uh, grasp, but the thing is, the person sees like everything, every being same, exactly behind the, on a deeper level, they, everybody is the same. That way he's saying, so that kind of a person is unable to harm or do any kind of a violent activity altogether, right? Because his understanding is such. So that understanding is the Sattvic understanding. Then the Sattvic happiness. uh, Sattvic happiness, he says, is the kind of happiness which tastes like a poison in the beginning, but in the end it becomes the nectar, and it comes out of the self-realization, right? It is similar to going to the gym or exercise. In the beginning, you are going to feel your body is hurting. You have to take out the time to do this, and it's not really producing any result in the short period, right? So in the beginning, it may taste like a poison, but later when the results, or later when the fruits start to kick in, then it becomes like a nectar, right? Your body feel healthy, your body feel strength, you feel nice, you feel good, your body is now secreting some hormones and all that kind of stuff. So later it becomes like nectar, right? So in the same way, the Krishna is saying, uh, in the beginning it tastes like a poison. You have to discipline yourself, you have to do the meditation, your mind is running all over the places, and you still have to practice it. It's not producing any result in the short term, but in the long term, this thing becomes like a nectar, right? Once the result of self realization start to kick in, and that kind of happiness, right? That sort of happiness which comes out of the tranquility of the self realization, right? The kind of a peace and the blissful state you are in, which is your basic nature, is the happiness that the Sattvic happiness Krishna says, right? And this is a causeless happiness, right? There is no reason for this happiness, right? And this is why this is such a highest kind of happiness, because you don't have to do anything. That is why it also persists, right? uh, this is very beautiful. So he says, the in the beginning it tastes like a poison, but in the end it tastes like nectar, right? That kind of happiness is the Sattvic happiness. It's like you have paid it, you have paid the price for it. uh, that kind of happiness is the Sattvic happiness. Then he says Sattvic food. The Sattvic food, Krishna says, is the kind of a food which promotes the long life, happiness, satisfaction, right? Strength. That kind of a food is the Sattvic food. And he gives like a basic qualities about what kind of food makes a Sattvic food. He says, um, the kind of a food which is a firm, juicy, pleasant to the heart, naturally sweet, that kind of a food is the Sattvic food, right? Very basic qualities. There's a lot of literature on what exactly is the Sattvic food. Not something which is spicy or rotten or that kind of food, but more something like normal, natural, organic fruit is the Sattvic food, right? So Sattvic food, so that kind of a food is the Sattvic food, and it promotes better life and happiness. And in fact, there is we did the Who Am I from the Raman Maharshi, and even the Raman Maharshi says that one of the best way to quiet the mind down is to eat the Sattvic food in the moderate quantity, right? It is clearly one of the very important aspect of the spiritual practices to eat the Sattvic food in the moderate quantity, right? Because that promotes the quieter mind. And the logic he gave is like the subtler part of the food also creates the mind. So if you're eating the Sattvic food, it also feeding your mind as well, right? So in that way, he's saying, in that way, the importance of eating the Sattvic food is uh, tremendous. In fact, this is one of the easiest way to cultivate the Sattvic qualities also, right? So that is the Sattvic food. Then the Sattvic Dhana or donation. Now the Sattvic donation is the one that is given with the intent of donation only, right? You don't want anything in return, otherwise it gets polluted. In fact, the whole Sattvic band, the fundamental, what you say, the underlying current is that you have no selfish desire, right? Everything is coming from that. You don't have any desire for the fruit of the action. There's no selfish desire at all, right? That is why it is Sattvic. That is why it is highest, right? So again, with the in terms of the dana, he says uh, that in terms of the dana, he says that it has to be given with the intent of only giving, right? It should not be given with the intent of I will get something back in the return or something like that, right? Completely with the intent of giving, and it should be given to the person who is worthy, right? It's not like you give the donation to anybody, it should be given to the worthy person at the right time and in the right place, right? So, and another quality he says about the Satvik Dhana is should be given to somebody who has done no previous favor to you, right? Or he is not somebody who can repay the gift for you. Otherwise, again, it becomes polluted, right? So, the Satvik Dhana is the kind of a Dhana which should be given with the intent of giving to the person who cannot repay you or haven't done any kind of previous favor at the right time in the right place to a worthy man, right? For example, it can be a child who is smart and he wants to get the education, but his financial situation is, in India you will see a lot of these opportunities, and his financial situation is not such that he can gain that education, and you can help with the financial, you can help him with the finance with the intent that if he get the good education he will get a good quality of life, right? Just with that intent, right? So that kind of a donation is the Satvik donation. And then the Satvik austerity. Now the Satvik has austerity. Austerity comes on the three level: mind, body, and speech. And again he says two conditions has to match. First of all, you should not desire for any fruit of the action. Classic Satvik quality, right? No desire for the fruit of the action. And at the same time you have a strong faith, right? With these two qualities, he says in terms of the body, the austerity of the body is non-violence, purity, worshipping the people who are wise or respecting the people who are the teacher and the wise, and celibacy. That is the austerity of the body. In terms of the speech, the austerity of speech is speaking the truthful words, not so easy to do, speaking the truthful words which are not harmful, gentle, beneficial for other people. That sort of speech is that is the austerity of speech. And in terms of the austerity of the mind is purity, silence, self-restraint. That is the austerity of the mind, right? So these are the Satvik austerities. And in terms of the action, finally in terms of the action or renunciation, Krishna says that the Satvik action is the one which is done, of course, without any kind of a desire for the fruit, right? So your action has to be free from any kind of a desire for the fruit, and it is done with the sense of duty, right? It is done with the sense of this action is ordained to me, so I want to do it, right? Some simple example can be if somebody is a father. I am not, but let's say if somebody is a father, uh, taking care of a kid or raising the kid best of his capability is the action that is ordained to him, right? So he does it with the best of his quality without any kind of a control or fruit of the action, like I want to make my child doctor or anything like that. He tried to cultivate, he tried to help the child grow, that's all, right? So that kind of action is Sattvic action. So these are the Sattvic qualities. These are the Sattvic qualities in a different aspect of our life. And in a way, Krishna is saying, if we want to increase the quality of our life, we need to increase these Sattvic qualities.